Well, welcome back, folks. I thought in this episode I would take you through some of my discoveries as I broke down the little Suzuki TS50 project. I've got a fair amount to talk about here. I'm going to try to get it all into one video, but it's possible. I haven't shot it all yet, but it's possible we might end up breaking this into two. We'll just see how it goes. I don't want to feel rushed about it, so if I feel I need to do two, I will. But I want to start with talking about the frame, and we're going to work through pretty much everything I've just done a quick review of. This isn't going to be all-inclusive. I haven't even looked at the engine yet. We'll talk about the engine at a totally different time when I get it up on the bench. So today we're really talking about everything I've learned as I've broken the bike down, starting with the frame as you see here in the frame. The very first thing I like to talk about is the Vin label here at the front of the steering stem, and let me zoom in on that a little bit closer for you so I can talk that through in more detail. In particular, what I want to talk about is the placement of this label. Now, I've worked on dozens and dozens, if not even hundreds, of Japanese motorcycles since the late 1960s when I was just a little kid. And I have never seen, on all the bikes I've worked on, a Vin label placed in this orientation. Normally they wrap around the steering stem. I suspect this one has been reapplied by a previous owner, and in fact, if I look at the back side of this label here, and I'm not going to be destructive with it because I want to preserve it, it looks like someone might have applied a contact cement. I suspect what might have happened is it started to peel. Someone might have used a heat gun to loosen it, and they moved around and reattached it, as you see here. At least that's my supposition. If anyone with more familiarity of these small Suzukis than I have and believes that this is in the correct orientation, let me know. I've just never seen one placed like that before, but it's possible. I've just never seen it also. So if anybody has information for me on that, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to have to continue to investigate a little further, but I'm very suspect. This Vin label will be removed intact as best I can because I'm going to have it replaced, reproduced, which you can do. There are a number of places that will reproduce this for you. So I'm going to preserve this and then have it reproduced and then obviously reapplied later. The bearings, the steering stem bearings, this is races rather, this is the top race here. And the bottom race are actually in very good condition. I was surprised because sometimes they get indentations and dimples in them from the bearings themselves. They get pounded into that race, but the races on both the frame as well as the steering stem are very good condition actually. They can probably be preserved. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to go ahead and replace the old-fashioned style like this, the ball bearing style with all balls or not. You can get an all balls kit for this, but since the bearings or the races and the bearings both are in very good condition, I might just put it back together the way it was originally designed with the ball bearings. Let me get the bearings, the ball bearings and the steering stem, and I want to talk about those in a little bit more detail. Here's the ball bearings I took out of the triple tree. You can see here I've got labeled, these are smaller by the way, these bearings right here are smaller in diameter than these, and these are the top bearings, and then here are the bottom bearings. I looked at the parts diagrams and it calls for 18 bearings for the bottom, but the parts diagram calls for 22 in the top, and I know I didn't lose any. Very confident of that. So I believe the previous owner was in this assembly and he had re-greased these bearings anyway. It looked like very fresh grease, so I'm guessing either the previous owner or someone years ago lost two of the ball bearings. You can still get these, by the way, from Suzuki. They're like $1.18 and $1.20 US each, $1.10, something like that, so they're not expensive. So if I need to buy two new ones for the top, it's not going to be a lot of money. And I did inspect these up close, and there's really no damage to any of them. So again, right now, I'm thinking I might just reuse these ball bearings rather than go to all balls, but I haven't made that final determination yet. Here's the steering stem. I just put it all back together just to hold it in position. As I talked about during the breakdown video, I don't break everything down to its finest element until I need to. That will be coming up for this simply because I'm going to have to get these parts powder coated or painted or refinished. But I talked about the bearing races a bit, and here's the bottom one right here. And again, there's really no dimples in that, and that's in very good shape. And the top one, which is right here, you can't see it with this assembly on top, but that also is in very good condition. So that's a little bit unusual. So my next step with this assembly will be to break it apart so I can get the top clamp and the bottom clamp off and send them off for repainting when I get to that, which will be the next step after this series of videos, 1 or 2 videos. But we'll talk about that in a little more detail in a few minutes. There's something else on the frame I want to share with you, though, before we move on to other parts. I've got the frame flipped upside down. I think you can see that right here because I wanted to show you the mounting point for the Footpeg bar, which mounts underneath here like this. So we're upside down. What I wanted to point out to you, and I hope you can see it on the video, is that this has been damaged a little bit. And we'll talk about the Footpeg bar itself in a minute, but particularly on this side right here, which is the left side of the bike when it's in its in-use position, you can see this plate or this flange is wrinkled like that. And the end here has been bent, and in fact on this side, this ear is bent in. So this whole thing has been bent, I'm exaggerating here, a bit like this, here and here, and this has been wrinkled. And that's caused, of course, by someone stuffing the bike into the ground or into a berm or into a hill. The Footpeg bar itself shows significant bending and twisting. Again, we'll talk about that in just a minute. But this didn't move because of this cross member here is welded in place. But it sure attempted to twist these pieces around. So what I'm going to end up doing, and it's certainly salvageable, I'm going to end up wedging in here probably a wooden block and then straightening this wrinkle out right here so I can get that straight. And then the same thing on the ends here. This one right here with my right hand is worse than that one. Those will be relatively easy to straighten. This bolt right here I'm turning with my right hand. You can see there's 2 of them right here, 1 on each side. Those are part of the mounting for the Footpeg bar. And that got kind of twisted around too, so I've got to straighten that all out. Again, using judicious use of wood and some metalworking hammers to try to straighten that out. Let's talk about the Footpeg bar next. There's the Footpeg bar. I left, again, the side stand attached to it. I'll take that off before I send it out for powder coat, of course. But I don't know if you can see it from that perspective, but this bar has a crown to it, like that. In other words, it does this. So it's bent in that direction. It's also bent here. This end here, I think, is pulled down. I think this comes down and dips like that. Off, I believe so. And then if you look at it from the top, this would be more from the rider's perspective. You can see that it's not straight. You can see how this is pulled back here and this is pulled back here. And of course, these are the mounting flanges that attach to the frame section I just talked about. They had the waviness to it and some bends to it. And you can see how that's been pulled in like this and being shoved into the ground somewhere. So what I'm going to do with this, it's salvageable certainly, but what I'm going to do is I'll use my shop press and take my time and I'll press this back straight. I'm not just going to start wailing on it with a great big hammer. I know some people do that, and there are times that that's necessary to use brute force, but I think I can finesse this in my press and get it back straight. I'll have to do that before I send it off for paint, obviously, both this and the frame. I'll have to get straight. And I'll test fit it to the frame as I go to make sure that I get everything straight and in alignment, and I'll probably even re-bolt it in position to make sure everything fits before I send it off and finish the straightening. So really the frame and this Footpeg bar, have to be straightened at the same time and test fit to make sure everything works right. But this has been crinkled pretty significantly, but again, this is not unusual at all. especially on these single bar, these older style single bar footpeg mounts rather than the individuals like they came out with on later models and are probably more common in the 70s than this size, which they use the single bar on often the smaller bikes. Here's the swing arm. I really haven't done anything with this, of course. I just took a look at it quickly. It does look to be completely straight. I don't see any damage to it outside of obviously being in serious need of paint. I will check the bushings here, the pivot bushings. I think those are still available from Suzuki, I'm not sure, but those can be an absolute bear to get out sometimes. I mean, if I don't have to take them out, I won't. I may have to for powder coating now that I think about it. If I was wet coating this, I wouldn't have to, but for powder coating, I'm probably going to have to take them out whether I want to or not, so a little correction there. But other than you know, the condition of the paint or the finish, it's straight and doesn't look like it's been bent. Now let's talk about the rear shocks. Original rear shocks, very poor condition, the finish. You can see the thin chrome that they applied to these bikes originally is pretty much gone. These are going to be problematic for me, I can tell you right now. The reason being is, even if I could get them apart, and I probably can get them apart if I wanted these caps to be re-chromed right here, this lower section is all welded together, and that's where the stem inside here, or the cylinder, is mounted here. So I can't essentially re-chrome this without destroying the rest of the shock. So that's going to be a problem. Again, I can probably get them apart. I can get the springs very likely off. I can powder coat the springs or wet coat them. I could get the caps right here re-chromed, I'm sure. But getting these lowers re-chromed without destroying the piston, and there's of course there's oil in here, isn't really viable. So my options are limited. I can either find a better pair of originals like this, or try to find an aftermarket or reproduction pair that closely emulates or matches these. I think that's what I did on a Honda SL125. But this is going to be a challenge for me to come up with a solution that is correct for this bike. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not sure I can duplicate these exactly at this point, but we'll see as I get into it. Well, here's the handlebars. They are in pretty good shape. There is one little kink right here, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but this has got a little crown to it right here. I could probably put that on my press and straighten that before I send it off to be re-chromed. I'm going to go over them a little bit more carefully here. This chrome, as you can see here, all pretty much gone, flaking off. But the rest of the bars look pretty straight except for that kink right here. But I have to check them over with more care, put it in a press, see if I can't straighten that out a little bit and see how they turn out. If I have to, I can probably replace them. But if I can salvage them by pressing that out, that little kink, I will do so. And of course, the handlebar control here on the left side, this is the clutch side. This will all be reworked. I think I alluded to before, I'm going to have these control bodies as well as probably the carburetor body pieces sent out and have them vapor blasted or vapor honed. And I'll replace this this lever right here certainly before it's over, and re-loom or re-sleeve and test all the wiring. Here we're looking at the front forks. I believe the previous owner had replaced the oil in both of them because it looked like fresh oil when I drained them, and of course I did drain them. The sliders, that's this section right here, are in very good condition. There's very minor marring. Probably can be cleaned up and reused. The lower sections here, I'll send out and have re-chromed because they do have some scuffs and scars on them. And then of course I'll put new seals in them and new boots as well. But all in all, the front forks, which can be a serious challenge also, and they can get real expensive fast. I think with some TLC and a little re-chroming of the lowers, a few new parts, I can get those back in very nice, if not pristine condition. These are the wheels and tires, rear wheel and tire to the right, front wheel and tire to the left. Obviously I have not dismounted them. I'm very confident these tires are original to the bike. They're 250 by 17s. They are still available in that approximate tread pattern, so I'm not anticipating any trouble getting new tires. I would guess that the tubes have probably been replaced somewhere along the way, but I don't know. I haven't opened them up yet. Obviously, they're taking them off. Hubs will have to be refinished and repainted because those are painted hubs in that Suzuki silver, or silver, very common to many of these bikes in this era. So once I get the wheels broken down completely, I'll have to refinish the hubs. I might do that myself and powder coat it. I don't know yet. They're actually in very good condition. Both wheels are in good condition. They're not pristine. They're not suitable, in my opinion, for a restoration, but they are certainly suitable for a rider. And if someone wanted just to have a very nice rider, these wheels, as they exist right now, and the spokes would be perfectly fine. But since I'm doing a restoration, I am going to replace the wheels. You can, at least according to the parts diagram, still get, I think I mentioned this before, you can get these wheels still from Suzuki, and they're with spokes, and they're far less money than having these re-chromed. I've not attempted to order them yet. Sometimes when you go to order, you find out they're no longer available, even though they say they are available. We'll find out. But right now, I think I can just replace the wheels and the spokes with new from Suzuki, not NOS. These are brand new. I'm thinking current production or relatively recent production. And then I'll probably sell these off to someone that's looking for some good wheels for one of their projects. These wheels are used on multiple bikes for Suzuki, so I don't think I'll have any trouble reselling the rims or the spokes, because all the spokes look like they're intact. None of them seem to be loose. Don't know about the bearings and the hubs yet. Probably okay. Don't know. Often I just go ahead and replace the bearings while I have the hubs apart anyway. They're not very expensive, and while you're in there, if there's any doubt, all new bearings. But we'll see. I'll decide that when I get inside of the wheels somewhere down the road. Here's the rear sprocket assembly as I took it off the bike, and as you can see, I haven't done anything to it at all. Pretty typical, pretty average for its age. These are chrome. These adjusters right here were originally chrome. Those are not plated, zinc plated. Those are chrome plated. Probably end up replacing those with new. I think those are still available from Suzuki. If not, I probably can find them NOS. If push came to shove, I could straighten these out a little bit. They got a few little minor tweaks to them. I could send them out and have them re-chromed. So I'm not concerned about coming up with a solution for the adjusters. This bushing, the axle, those can be replated or zinc plated very easily. Hub can be refinished or cleaned up, polished. Bearings in here, I have no idea, but again, same conversation like we just had on the wheel bearings themselves. We'll probably replace it, but we'll soon we get in there. The sprocket will have to be replaced. I don't know if you can see it from your perspective, but it is starting to hook. It's just starting to show signs of hooking over like that. If you can see that or not. And I'm pretty sure this is an original 42, let's see if you can see that, 42 tooth, 420 chain. It looks like an original Suzuki sprocket. I'm not sure if you can get these yet. I haven't looked into that yet, but I have a fair amount of work to do yet, or to do, not yet. I haven't even started it on the rear hub assembly, and I'll start on this about the time that I get to. I haven't finished everything I want to talk about. I want to get into the body work, the fender, side covers, fuel tank, and some of the discoveries I had with the taillight assembly and rear fender in more detail. So I think I'm going to call this video a wrap at this point, and we'll pick up the conversation with part 2 of this review of my discoveries during the project breakdown. Any issues, questions, thoughts, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.